So, welcome into a little bump and run podcast exclusive. We're going to be getting into our mid-season NFL power rankings. This is something that we did last year on the podcast, but we haven't really had much of a spot to put it here yet this season. So, we're going to go ahead and just hop on here and do a little exclusive for you guys. Charles and I getting together, we kind of compiled a list of the top 10 teams that we've got here in the league as it stands here on Tuesday, heading into week 13. So, or excuse me, week 12. So, um, Charles, you want to start us off with number 10? I think both of us are on the Browns. Just provide a little bit of context about the Browns and why you've got them here in the top 10.
So the Browns have 7 wins, right? Right.
Yeah.
And like you said in our Thanksgiving episode, I don't think I've ever seen. Well, I think we have a couple of years ago, but a 7-win Browns team that actually looks this good. The team with Baker and Odell and Jarvis Landry, they look good, but not like this. Like this Browns defense is legitimate. Jim Schwartz is doing an excellent job with this defense. Not even only Miles Garrett, the secondary looks good. Those guys are playing up. They're physical. This defense just kind of beats the hell out of you. You look at that 49ers game, and I always go back to that 49ers game. They just beat the hell out of them. Trent Williams got knocked out of the game. Christian McCaffrey didn't get knocked out of the game, but he got hurt. They beat the hell out of Debo Williams. They just bully people. And no, that doesn't turn into wins, but look at some of the games. I mean, the defense, maybe they don't beat the Ravens if they don't get that pick six in that game, right? A couple of weeks ago. Offensively, yes, they got a little question mark at quarterback, but I think if they can get Joe Flacco in the game and get him up to speed with the offense, maybe scoring about 17 points a game, but that defense might keep them in some games, in position to win some games, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you too. I mean, really, you just got to step up on the offense. The defense has been keeping them in most of these games. I know in the episode that we had this week, we talked about Dorian Thompson Robinson coming in, and with the adversity that he's faced, to just get those guys back in the game and ultimately cap it off with a Dustin Hopkins field goal. But yeah, I agree with you, man. If they can get Flacco in there, I know they just signed him to the practice squad, but if you get a guy like that up to speed, even if he's not starting right away, like I mentioned on the show, he's a guy who he's got a veteran mind. He's somebody who knows the game, and he's been to a Super Bowl before. He's been with a great team in the Ravens for a lot of his career. And, I think he can certainly help out some of the younger guys in that room, especially on offense. So I like the Browns here at 10. Again, it's crazy that we're talking about the Browns here being in the top 10 of our power rankings, but yeah, I'm here for it, man. I love to see the Browns sitting at 7-3. So props to them. So let's go ahead and get to number 9. We've got the Houston Texans there on our list. Of course, CJ Stroud has been just lights out so far this year. I know he had a couple rough interceptions last week against the Cardinals, but they got the win, and that's what you need to do is pile up wins in this league. Like I mentioned on the show, they've already doubled their win total from last year, and they've got some guys on that team that can ball. I mean, Devin Singletary's stepping up. Tank Dell has been crazy. Nico Collins kind of came out of nowhere. Dalton Schultz is pitching in. So you've got a lot of offensive talent on that team. And on the defensive side of the ball, too, they're coming around. D'Amico Ryan's got those boys playing. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Texans right now. We talked about them having sort of a clear path to the playoffs if they can pile up some wins here over this next stretch. And their schedule's really not that hard here the rest of the way. So, I'm looking for them to get to that 7th seed or even the 6th seed, man. So, what do you got to say here for the Texans here sitting at number 9, Charles?
You know, a lot of what you just said, but also just Nico Collins, emphasis on Tank Dell. And if I could, in this little Power Rankings episode, I'm going to go ahead and give Tank Dell a game ball from last week, too. I know I gave Brock Purdy my game ball, but
Yeah.
Tank Dell had 143 receiving yards. This is a guy I keep saying every week. I wanted the Eagles to draft him. And most people are like, who
I
is
know.
that? Who is it? And I'm like, this dude could play. And I see that he's like actually changed his name. So I'm going to think it was Tank Dell on his player ID now. Like, this dude is legit. CJ Stroud, amazing. The defense, and we said this after the draft. You pick CJ Stroud and then you pick Will Anderson. So you got your offensive and defensive captains at the same time in the same draft. Derek Stingley out there playing cornerback is somebody who I just want to keep an eye on because he was someone who was supposed to be good wearing that number 14 at LSU. Folks don't know the number 14 at LSU comes with some prestige. They give it out to, or seven, sorry, comes with prestige and they give it out to really the good players. And players like Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, and then Stingley all won it. And then he's kind of living up to it here in the NFL. So I'm I wouldn't have bet a penny that the Texans would be sitting here in playoff position at this point in the season.
Right.
I think I picked them to win. I think, and I'll be honest, because I've been thinking about this. I think I picked them to win less than what their over/under was this year.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think I might have as well. I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but yeah, I really didn't expect this from these guys. I expected them to still be in this rebuilding process, whereas you're starting to get these guys worked in gradually, but things have taken off down there, and I love to see it, especially for D'Amico Ryans being a first-year head coach in there. So it's cool, coming back, coaching the team that he once played for. It's a good storyline right now down there in Houston. So props to the Texans. Another team we talked about is the Jags. We've got them here at number 8. And you look back at the Jaguars this week. This was the bounce back game that you wanted them to have. They came out last week and got embarrassed by the 49ers. Both teams were coming out of a bye, of course. But Trevor Lawrence connected with Calvin Ridley this past weekend. They needed that kind of game, man. I mean, that connection has been kind of spotty this year, and you really haven't seen much since week 5 over in London. But Ridley had 2 touchdown catches this weekend, and it looked good for them. Now, for the Jags moving forward, I know, they just got to focus on winning that division, and they should be okay. But what are you thinking here in terms of how the season should go for the Jags the rest of the way, Charles?
So I want to start off by the 49ers team because I've looked back. The Jaguars, and this isn't a good thing, they just didn't look prepared last week. I don't
Yeah.
think it was a thing. They just didn't look prepared. It came out flat after the bye week, which was, a little. It's not something that should be expected of a team of that caliber. But I look at the Jags. They got a big game against the Texans that'll probably decide they lose to the Texans. The Texans have the tiebreaker over them, the bona fide tiebreaker over them, because they will have swept them. But you look, the Jaguars have already swept did they sweep the Colts yet? Well, they beat the Colts once.
They beat them once, yeah.
Swept the Titans already. So they're sitting there 3-1 in the division. You win this game, you'll be 4-1, and then you'll go ahead and sweep the Colts, get them out of the way, because that game's going to be in Jacksonville. And then I think, it could be a battle between them two, between the Texans, our 9-8 teams, and I think the Jaguars ultimately, because I want to give coaching here. D'Amico Ryans is a good coach, but I want to give coaching the thumbs up to the Jags. I think one problem that they could see is their offensive coordinator, Press Taylor. I didn't like him when he was in Philly. I just didn't think he was creative enough. And I think Doug needs to put his hands more in that offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I would like to see a little bit more creativity there, and Doug's capable of that. But let's talk about the Cowboys. We've got the Cowboys sitting here at number 7, and I mentioned it on the show. The Cowboys have this thing with just making a bad team look bad, and they did that this past weekend with the Panthers. They've done it against the Patriots, and they play well when they should, but they do not in big games. And it's going to be tough sledding here for Dallas. I mean, of course, they're still going to be right there in that NFC playoff race. But we've got one, two, three. We got three teams in the NFC ranked above them here. So, uh, give me your thoughts on the Cowboys here as they make their way down the final stretch of the season. I know Dak's playing some of his best football. Tony Pollard's playing well. CeeDee's playing well, but what do you like here about the Cowboys the rest of the way?
Their defense, maybe.
Yeah, that's
Honestly,
huge.
and their schedule is nice to them. So, but they have, just like what people are saying right now, the Eagles are going through the gauntlet. The Cowboys, who knows where the Bills will be in December? The Cowboys have to play them in Buffalo. They have to go to Miami and play the Dolphins. They have to go. Well, no, the Lions come to them if I'm not mistaken. So they have to play Detroit. So Detroit's the number 2 team in the NFC right now. Are they really the number 2 team? I, I'm not completely. I don't know, but
Right.
I think
Yeah.
at 8-2, you deserve some respect
Oh yeah, certainly.
as an 8-2 football team. And
Yeah.
that could be a game where Detroit goes out there and says, "Look, we're for real. We're not here. Our record isn't fluky. We're here. We're gonna beat the Cowboys." And then you're looking at the Cowboys like, when are you going to beat a good team? Now, people who listen will say, "Well, you always say you can only play who's on your schedule." But yeah, I will say that. But the two good teams that they have played on their schedule, they have lost to.
They've lost. Yep.
So when are they going to be the good team? Is when what I'm going to say. And people said it about the Eagles. People have said when Jalen Hurts going to be the good quarterback. Well, he did on Monday night.
Yeah. So let's keep it moving here. Let's talk number 6. We've got the Miami Dolphins ranked as 6th on our list. Um, Dolphins have looked good, man. They've been moving the ball at will all year, especially with guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua has been playing amazing. I know it'd be nice to get a guy like Devon A-Chain back in there, but seems like he injured his what was it, his groin or another knee injury or something like that this weekend. So it'd be nice to have him in there. But when you got a guy like Tyreek Hill that can just go up and down the field without breaking a sweat, I think you'll be just fine. Um, Miami this past weekend, they had a couple giveaways, just didn't necessarily pull away from the Raiders like I thought they would. The Raiders kind of kept them in check and hung around all afternoon. But I think Miami's defense says a lot about who they are as well. You look at them, they've got a ton of great guys, great talent over there. It starts with Jalen Ramsey. As you saw, a big interception to end that game this weekend. So if they can get great play from both sides of the ball, I think they can make some noise in the AFC. You look around the AFC. Uh, you've got the Bills, who of course they still have yet to play down in Miami later this year. The Bengals lose Joe Burrow, so they're all but out. I don't think that Miami plays against Baltimore, so that would be a matchup I would be interested in seeing after that amazing shootout that we saw last year. But I think the Dolphins can make some noise here, so that's why we got them at 6. Charles, you give us a little bit of insight on the Dolphins.
Yeah, so and the Dolphins actually do play the Ravens on December 31st.
Okay, well, that
So New Year's Eve. That could be that. Look, that could be a big game. Let's say the Browns go and win this division. Then we're talking about two teams who are fighting for seeding at that point. Or if the Dolphins are winning their division at that point, and maybe there's 2 or 3 seed or 1 or 2 seed in the like in the forefront there. So I look at the Dolphins and I say, I can't think about the Dolphins without thinking about the 70-point performance that they had this year. It's part of the reason why their offense is one of the quickest offenses that we've seen in the last 20 years. And I think we'll see them start to hit more of a stride, because one person you didn't name was Jalen Waddle,
yeah.
who is like, when he's on, he's a good number 2 to Tyreek Hill, but he hasn't been on that much. So when I look at the Dolphins, I'm like, Tyreek Hill's speed is great. And it doesn't matter what you do, he's going to score and get past your defense. But What's going to happen when Jalen Waddle becomes a viable second option again? And Cedric Wilson's doing his thing. I think they are missing Mike Gesicki a little bit.
Yeah, I
And
could
this
see
is
that.
this, yeah, it's because having a good tight end is always um, it's always helpful.
Right. And no, I do see them go to Durham Smythe quite a bit, and I'm usually like, man, who the fuck is that? But he's helped them out on some big drives. So the Dolphins are going to be okay. That matchup with the Ravens will be huge. I forgot they played. So as far as number 5, that's where we're going to have the Lions. Of course, the Lions sitting here at 8-2. Big game this week against the Packers, and I think they should beat them. But Jared Goff, he's looked great this year. He looks a little rusty there on Sunday afternoon against Chicago. But man, you look at that offense, and they've been rolling this year. You got a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs. You've got David Montgomery, who's been lights out, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown involved. And, the defense, once we saw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson go down, we thought, well, what's going to happen here? But that defense has showed up, man. They got a lot of guys that you could barely name over there, but they're putting it together right now. And I love everything that's coming out of Detroit. So that's why we got them here at number 5, man. Cracking the top 5 for Detroit. Again, they're a team like Cleveland who have not been good over the years, but it's nice to finally see a little bit of a change and see them up here. Just got a little stale with talking about the Packers every single season. So you love to see it, man. But give me some input on the Lions here, sitting at number 5.
Yeah, and the way the Lions ended the season against the Packers, right? It kind of was a precursor to what was going to happen this year. They started the season and went into Kansas City the night that Kansas City was doing their little Super Bowl unveiling night, and they, you know, upset them. Yeah, Chris Jones and Travis Kelsey weren't in the game, but tough shit.
Yeah, you can only play who's in front of you, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
so I look at this Lions team, and the thing that holds me back on them, while they're at 5, we put them at 5 because I think they are, like, when you look at the best teams, I think they are the third best team in the NFC right now, or fourth, third or fourth. I think them and the Cowboys are close together, even though the Cowboys are lower on this list. I just think the Lions have beaten more people in. Like, this is what I look for in teams. Can you win the close games? Can you put up points? Can you blow out a team if you need to? You know, can you come back from being down? They just answered that question last week, whether it's a good down to a good team or not. The Lions check all those boxes, and then their defensive line, Aiden Hutchinson, guy's a beast. He's a monster. I really like Brian Branch. He was a nice addition to their team. Now, CJ would have been nice for them to be able to have him going forward, but obviously that didn't work out. But this team's got a little swagger to them. They got a coach who really feeds into the guys, feeds into what the guys want, and I think that's why they are where they are. Defensively, though, I am worried about them because they can give up some points now.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and the top two, if you're gonna make a real run in the playoffs, the top two teams in the um, conference, the 49ers and the Eagles, they can put up points when they need to.
Right. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to watch here down the stretch. The the Lions have got some good ones coming up, so I'll be interested to see, especially once we get into those NFC playoffs, just see how they fare against some of those other teams. They've been doing just enough to get them to where they need to be right now, and it's been quite a change. So let's get into number 4 here. I think we both agreed to this. We got the Kansas City Chiefs sitting at number 4. Chiefs coming off of a loss here on Monday night against your Eagles. And I think the biggest thing right now when I look at the Chiefs, it's do you have guys outside of Travis Kelsey that are able to catch the ball? And right now it feels like the answer is no. I mean, you see time and time again how many of their passes have been dropped this year. And even Kelsey himself, he dropped a couple on Monday night. He dropped a big one that would have been a 3rd and 2 conversion there. But it's a matter of putting that together. Can they rely on Isaiah Pacheco to run them down the field? Of course they can, but you got to have it all put together. Now, of course, we've got a league MVP, we've got a Super Bowl winner here in Patrick Mahomes that we're talking about, and I'm confident that he'll be able to lead them down the stretch, and they're going to be in that AFC Championship. I know it, but it's just a matter of getting getting things to work like a well-oiled machine and just get back, to dominance. And I don't want to make this sound like they've fallen off. I mean, they've lost 3 games now this year. They're sitting at 7-3. Um, I think they'll be okay, even if they do lose another 1 or 2 games here this year. But what are you looking at here as far as the Chiefs? I know I didn't touch much on the defense, but what are you looking at here, Charles?
Yeah, well, that defense is one of the top defenses in the league, and that defense is going to carry them where they need to go. I think the offense, right now, they're not scoring points in the second half, and that's what the problem is. Uh, and that's something that can be fixed. That's something that can be fixed. I think it's something that will be fixed. The season is starting now. Andy Reid will get them guys together. We're getting ready to go into December football, and just check his record in December and January, and he'll get them together. I think things like drop passes, that's something that coaches can help them with, but the players really just got to focus. And then just even against the Eagles, they turned the ball over twice, but that isn't something that the Chiefs normally do. They're
Mm.
usually better with the football. Now Patrick Mahomes had that pick, and Travis Kelsey had that fumble, and there were just a couple of drops. Like Travis Kelsey dropped the ball on third and short the other day. Like, is that going to happen all the time? I don't think so.
Right.
So going forward, looking at their schedule, the Chiefs can run the table and end up getting the number one seed.
Yeah, and I think they will. It's just, when you look at it, it's not like the Bills where you're seeing the Bills, you know, turn the ball over multiple times a game and shoot themselves in the foot and get penalties that back them up. The Chiefs are better than that, and I think if these two teams match up again, we're going to see the same type of result. It's going to be Stephon Diggs with hands on hips.
Yep. Look, that's what I tell the Chiefs fans: panic today, party tomorrow, because we know what's going to happen.
Right. Let's keep it moving here. Let's get into the top 3. We've got the Baltimore Ravens sitting here at number 3. And, they've been on a tear this year. I think they've been playing well. Some people might even have them at number 2. I mean, they're right there up there with the Eagles, of course. It's tough when you lose a guy like Mark Andrews. I know that's crucial to that offense. He's a big piece, a guy they rely on, especially after you lose a guy like J.K. Dobbins. But their running attack since then has been okay. They've had Gus Edwards. They've got the other guy, that Mitchell. I think he's been playing well. So maybe you get to a guy like Isaiah Likely, get him involved in this offense. I know he showed some flashes last year, but that Ravens defense has been playing just as good as the offense. And that's what you need to have here going down the stretch. And that's why they're 8-3. I think they can definitely run the table and win the division. But what are you looking at here as far as the Ravens go here, sitting at number 3, Charles?
I think the Ravens going forward, they'll have to now. I have them at number 2 because I think the two teams above them are just have a little bit more firepower, and if you need something late in the game, I think the two teams ahead of them can make things happen late in the game. Not saying that
Yeah.
the Ravens can't, but I think they're going to have to learn how to work this offense without Mark Andrews. Lamar looks to Mark Andrews a lot. Nothing wrong with that. That's what quarterbacks should do. Look to your safety blanket, security blanket. But you got a lot of other weapons. You got Nelson Aguilar. Imagine calling him a weapon. Odell Odell Beckham Jr. And then I always remember. I always forget his name. Number 4.
Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers. Oh, I was getting ready to say Zay. Zay Flowers. You have him. Utilize that speed. There's a lot of speed on this offense. And then Gus Edwards and Mitchell, both, they have to keep it balanced. I think that's how you win in Baltimore. Keep it balanced. Help your defense out. But their defense is pretty good. Their defense, like the Browns, they'll beat the hell out of you for the whole game. But their offense has to stop letting teams stick around.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing. You got to put up points, step on the gas. I mean, I think the only reason they knocked off the Bengals in the fashion that they did is because Burrow went down. Now, if Burrow would have stuck around in that game, it might have been a dogfight. But yeah, if the Ravens want to succeed, they just got to keep on the throttle and keep putting points up, keep getting just big wins, pile them up. They don't play a lot of tough games here down the stretch. I know we talked about them playing the Dolphins, but outside of that, they got a couple divisional games left, but nothing too out of the ordinary. So, they can be right there to lock up the number 2 seed and put themselves in a good spot here. So, let's round it out talking about the final two. We've got the San Francisco 49ers sitting at number 2 on our rankings here, Charles. Um, Give us a little insight as to why we put the 49ers here. Of course, we weren't going to put them below the Eagles, but what puts them higher than a team like the Chiefs or the Lions that we have sitting here at number 5. I know you said that you can rely on a team like this to maybe get some of these tougher wins and points when you need them. So, what do you got to say about the 49ers here?
Yeah, well, I put them above the Lions. We put them above the Lions because I think today they beat the brakes off the Lions. We talk
They
about
they
today.
yeah, they would.
Or it could be a close game. It depends because the Lions offense can score. Now, the 49ers just lost their one of their safeties who was a part of that defense. But when you look at it, the 49ers have things that can travel, a running game and a good defense. Um, that's no matter how much football change, a running game and a good defense will always be able to go with you. I think Kyle Shanahan does a great job of scheming things up because if you look at some of the games when they're winning, it's because their players are just running wide open down the field. It's not even a thing of Brock Purdy throwing a lot of contested catches. They're wide open. Even like the touchdown he threw to Brandon Ayuk over Jamel Dean this week. It wasn't like Dean jumped up like he was going to catch an interception. It was like 5 yards between them two, or a couple of yards between them two. He had no shot at even jumping up and intercepting that pass. Their players get breaks. They beat you at the line of scrimmage. Christian McCaffrey does his thing running the ball, and then you got a resurgent of George Kittle. Like I remember picking him in fantasy a couple of years, and it just didn't work out. But he is still proven to be one of the best tight ends in the game right now. Defensively, a guy like their defensive line, Adam Chase Young, but already having Nick Bosa and then Javon Hargrave and the guys Kinlaw in the middle. Then you look at Dre Greenlaw and then Fred Warner. That front seven is really good. Here's
Yeah,
where I think here's where I think you run into a problem is with that secondary because they can get cut. They can get shred up if teams have time. If the quarterbacks have time behind there, and it's a big if because that defensive line is good and the linebackers are good. But the teams have time. You can really get after those cornerbacks and safeties.
yeah, no, for sure. Especially like you mentioned, that front seven, it's nasty. But yeah, they just lost Talanoa Hufunga. Thought I was going to butcher his name there, but and yeah, again, you need a good secondary, especially if you're going to run into a team like the Eagles, in the NFC playoffs. I mean, you got guys that can stretch the field over there like Smith and AJ Brown. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm right there with you, having them at number 2. But go ahead and talk about your Eagles sitting there at number 1, Charles. Of course, we got to have them there, sitting at 9-1 here, heading into Week 13.
Well, they got the best record, and when you got the best record, you're number one on our power rankings. We keep it simple.
Yeah.
No, um, you just look at the Eagles each week. In the beginning, people were like, "Oh, they're letting teams back in the games. You play a better team, you won't beat them this way." And then they beat the Dolphins by 14. And you play a better team, you won't beat them this way because they lose to the Jets. You go into the Cowboys, you play like that, you're gonna lose, and they win. And then but you almost let the Cowboys back into the game. They had a chance to win the game. Then play the Chiefs like this. Andy coming off the bye, you're gonna lose. Then what happened? They're finding ways to win games. People are saying it's not pretty. I've even heard some people compare them to the Vikings of last year, which it is not even the same.
No
Uh,
way.
it's not pretty, but here's the thing. I don't want to date the winner. I don't want to have sex with the winner. It's not my girlfriend or anything. I just want the win to happen. It can be ugly. It doesn't have to be good looking. It has to be a win. That's all.
Right.
I don't care what it looks like. Just give me the win. I'm not attracted to it. I'm attracted to winning. Whether it's
Oh yeah.
ugly, pretty, in between, I want to win. And that's what they're doing each week. The quarterback has been hot and cold at times, but when it's time to go win the game, he does it.
Oh
The one
yeah.
game they lost was, you think about it, the one game they lost was to Zach Wilson, and he isn't even a starter. He isn't even a second string quarterback anymore. But why
Yeah.
they lose that game? They let them hang around. They didn't score since the first half of the game, and they turned the ball over 4 times.
Yeah. And Philly's catching their stride now. I know we talked about them having those close games, and like you said, oh well, they haven't beat anybody, and they almost let them come back, and it's always a constant storyline about why this happened or why that didn't happen, and the Eagles are just proving that they're the best right now. I mean, they're 9-1 here for the second straight season, and I think they're gonna. We talk about this gauntlet that they have coming up. That was a big one to beat the Chiefs, and like you said, they've knocked off some of the best teams. I'll be interested to see them match up here against the Niners here, but how could you not have them at the top of the league right now? So,
And they don't. On
go
top
ahead.
of that, Ben, when they're saying they haven't beaten anyone and all that stuff about the schedule, all you have to do, and this is what I'll say, I said it about the Cowboys, you have to beat who's on your schedule, but can you match up against those good teams? You look at the Jalen Hurts. I think he's 13 and has won 13 straight games against winning teams. He just beat Peyton Manning and Vinny Testaverde's record last night. That isn't something easy to do. How many other quarterbacks have done that lately?
Right.
Not a
Yeah,
lot.
when the Patriots were in their dominance, it was always the same story with them too. It was yeah, they did that, but here's this, or yeah, they're going to do that, but there's this. That's just how it's going to be. When you're at the top, you're going to have people coming for your neck, and that's just what it's going to be. But the Eagles are showing they deserve to be there right now, and it's only fair that we have them there. So that is going to be our top 10. If you guys tuned in, we appreciate you as always. Hoping to get some more content out like this here the rest of the way. Get some snippets out. We've got TikTok, we've got Instagram. So, make sure you follow us on those socials at bump and run _pod. But yeah, again, thank you guys for joining this little snippet. And we'll look forward to getting another episode out here next week. So don't miss that on all major platforms. But thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Bump and Run out.